person, Brad Geddes, is here. He's an expert in the topic, and he's going to be sharing with us ways that you can future-proof your job in the area of AI and machine learning. Now, in this webinar, we're going to talk about the impact of machine learning on internet marketing strategies and the job market, what a machine can and cannot do, and how to future-proof your job roles and to structure your career in this new domain where you're sharing it with machines. So just doing a little bit of housekeeping here. Since all attendees are muted by default, if you want to ask a question of the host or of the panelist, first click on the chat icon in the upper right corner of the WebEx meeting center there, and a chat window will then appear in the lower right. And from the drop down, make sure that you select the participant to address your message to. And for that, make sure you select host and presenter, because in case Brad can't see your question directly, we'll be able to recognize it and forward it on to him. And then finally, in the chat box, you can type your question or your comment, and then make sure you click the send button. Just a reminder that in addition to the chat function in WebEx, you can join us for a live chat on Twitter by following us and tagging @Simplilearn in your questions. You can also join us on YouTube Live. Just type Simplilearn into the search bar on YouTube and be sure to subscribe to receive alerts for all upcoming YouTube videos. So now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Brad Geddes. Brad is the author of Advanced Google AdWords, the co-founder of AdAlysis, an automatic ad testing and PPC recommendation platform. Brad frequently writes columns for Search Engine Land and co-moderates the AdWords forum on Webmaster World. He's also keynoted and spoken at more than 85 conferences and led more than 80 AdWords seminars. Plus, he's a course advisor for the digital marketing curriculum here at Simplilearn. So Brad, thank you very much for joining us for this really exciting topic.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. And just to check, can you hear me okay?
You are coming in great.
All right, perfect. So welcome everybody. So we're going to walk through today, right? It is about man versus machine and how jobs are going to get lost or in more cases transform. And then we'll look at how automation affects different job types, about prior knowledge, which is sort of some interesting studies we're going to dig into, and the evolution of PPC jobs. And then finally, what are good ways to sort of future-proof your career? And so a lot of times people are sort of afraid of automation, right? And it's not that they like automation for their personal uses. They're afraid of automation because it might cost them their job. And this is really not true in many, many cases. It transforms them. Deloitte did a study. This is the UK job market, and found that, over the course of time, 800,000 low-skilled jobs were eliminated because of AI and automation, right? So that sounds like a lot, 800,000 lost jobs. But in reality, because manufacturing costs drop, mining costs drop, right? What happens is now there's actually more money in the company. And so this lost 800,000 jobs actually transformed into 3.5 million new jobs. And those jobs paid $13,000 a year more, right? Huge difference. So if we sort of put this in a very concrete example, back in the 1970s was the invention of the ATM, the automated teller machine. And so bank tellers were afraid that they were all going to lose their jobs. I mean, if you could just walk up to a machine, get out some cash, deposit your money, not during banking hours, but 24/7, 365 a year, why would they have a job, right? And so as ATMs started being spread out more and more, it created jobs. Now, that seems sort of counterproductive, but the reason why is the average bank, most of them were downtown locations, required 21 tellers, right? So a huge overhead count. Now, what happened then is ATMs rolled out and branches dropped to 13 tellers. Okay, so now there's actually more money flowing in the company. But it also meant it was cheaper to operate any one branch. And so then what happened is a deregulation happened at banks at the same time. but consumers demanded better access to their local branches. And so suddenly we had all these micro banks, right, popping up, and it wasn't you had to go downtown anymore to go to a bank. You could have one in your neighborhood. And so because of this access, right, there more banks came, more bank teller jobs were created. Now, the difference though was their jobs changed. Before, a bank teller's job was mostly take deposits and give cash back. All right, the machine can do that. The ATM can do that. So the job changed from information processing, right, to intelligence based. So now your bank teller was more educated on what if you want to open a new checking account, we have 5 types. What's best for you? If you want to buy a new house, we have all these mortgage things. And so this is an important point, right? Change from information to intelligence. And we're going to come back to this point in like half an hour or so. So when we specifically look, right, at the PPC arena, so machine learning was invented in the 1950s. Incredibly expensive processing. So it existed, and if you had a Cray computer or a network of Crays, you could run a little bit. But it was too expensive and too slow for anyone to care it really existed. And so in 1998, I opened my first paid search account. Now, number one, I actually couldn't open it online. I had to call someone to open it. There were no tools. Everything was manual. And keyword research was called guesswork, right? There were no tools for keyword research even. And then by 2001, so we're talking 3 years into it, GoToast launches. Now, GoToast is the very first bid management solution. What happened is there were about 8 rules you can employ, such as bid above a competitor, bid to this position, set this bid number. And initially you could do it 6 times a day. Then Overture, GoTo and Overture, API got better, it became 12. Later become 24 times a day, and then finally 48. Now, problem is there was one tool. Every large company used the same tool. And so whenever the times were updated, how often you could actually update bids. We used to do war sessions where we'd sit down, we'd pick our 20 top keywords, we'd refresh the page for 24 hours straight on these keywords to map out when everyone changed their bids. And then we'd sit there and say, okay, so they changed their bids on the hour mark. We're going to change them on the 5 minute after the hour mark. So we're our last bid set. It was automated with a whole lot of manual humans to it. All right, 2002, AdWords launches. So AdWords launched, but it was still all manual. But later that year, eFrontier launched. Now, eFrontier was the first intelligent bidding system, which was acquired by Adobe. They're now part of the Adobe suite. So then we think about 04 and 08, it wasn't about automation. It was the rise of the resellers. Your RH Donnelly, Dex Media, Super Pages, Thompson, that were managing 10 to 80,000 PPC accounts. So it was about scale. When you're scaling, things are about organization, not automation. Marin launched in 06. SEMRush didn't launch until 2008. I think everyone knows SEMRush. They're only 10 years old. Now, 2010, big change happened. Google launched CPA bidding, an automated bid system run by AI that anyone had access to. And you know what? In 2010, it was terrible. It was an awful, awful system that raised your CPAs and lowered your conversions over doing it manually. Because it didn't have any data yet. Right? When machine learning launches and you use it, you're actually the guinea pig to give the machine learning enough data so it can make intelligent decisions. But we started getting more automation, right? And life became about ads and margins. Now, 2010's big shift happened called deep learning. Now, deep learning is sort of a subset of the AI arena, which allows computers to process things much, much faster. Now, to give you an example, right, in the computing industry, we have what's called Moore's Law. So Moore's Law states that computing power doubles, right, every couple of years. So if we apply this to the automotive industry, first car, Model A in 1908, went 11 miles an hour. 11. If we applied Moore's Law to the automotive industry, the average car would go over 1 billion miles an hour. Now, of course, cars don't go 1 billion miles an hour, but that's how much computing power is actually increased, right? When you do doubling, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, right? Numbers get very big very quickly. And so machine learning, because of deep learning, right, makes machine learning feasible for a lot of other technology. And so we think about this year. Bidding is mostly automated. That used to be someone's job. It's mostly automated. Right? Machines are terrible at ads right now. We'll talk about this a little bit more. And machine learning fails right now as much as it gets it right. And part of that's due to this concept of prior knowledge, which we'll touch on a little bit. So when we look and say, okay, well, what are the actual jobs in paid search? Okay, under sales, we have direct sales. They talk to customers, they open an account, they land new clients for you. And we have business development, right? Usually more large-scale enterprise integrations. We have market research. We need to analyze the markets, the competition. We need to devise strategies based upon market competition and our abilities. All right, we have analytics, reporting, giving their clients or your boss their monthly report, month over month over month. And then this sort of more concept of data storytelling. And then within an account directly, right, we have writing, bidding, and strategy again. So what we want to do is say, let's break these down and let's look at how susceptible they are to sort of computers taking over that aspect, right, of a paid search account. So some of this data comes from this fantastic white paper done by Oxford University that looks at the future of employment, right? How susceptible are jobs to, right, computers taking over? And so there's sort of a fun site at Will Robots Take My Job, which actually digitized the white paper. So I want to kind of start looking at the marketplace. So for example, when we look at sales roles, well, sales roles are predicted to decline in growth, and 54% of the jobs are going to be lost to automation. Does this mean sales agents are in trouble? Yes, for many, many good reasons, right? So here's sales in paid search. 1998, you had to call somebody on the phone. All right, that sales job, gone. Right, as soon as GoTo launched an online sign-up system, right? No one's ever opened an AdWords account by calling up Google and saying, hey, I want to open up an AdWords account. It's online, it's automated, right? By 2002, that was an AdWords initial, which is the CPM system before the current AdWords rolled out. You had to do an insertion order. So if you've never dealt with insertion orders, thank your lucky stars. You had to submit paperwork or faxes back and forth that said, here's the client, here's the budget, here's the account number. I had an employee in 2005. Their entire job was to send and receive and double check 40,000 insertion orders. That's a horrible job, right? That job should be automated because no one needs all that manual back and forth any longer. So these days, a lot of sales jobs are automated. You think of signing up for Basecamp, Trello, right? Any task management system, Asana. You didn't call them, right? 20 years ago, you actually had to call someone to make something like that. It's online sign up. However, business development is different, right? Business development says, here's what we offer, here's what you need. How do we make these two things work together, right? It's not purely a sales role. And so that's very much immune to a lot of the computers taking over. But what would you rather do? Call someone up to open up a simple account, or just do it yourself in 30 seconds? right? Everyone wants to do it themselves. We don't need a lot of this anymore. Now, when it comes to account managers, people who are doing the day-to-day work inside an AdWords account, these aren't a direct correlation because these are just overall advertising and promotions managers. Very, very few of these jobs are actually going to go away. It'll transform, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Right? But when you think about the planning, the directing, and the coordinating of advertiser programs, right? That is saying our TV flight launches on this day, and our email message says this, and here's the type of stuff we want to coordinate to our PPC campaign. A computer can't do that. It'll tell you when your flight schedule is. It can tell you that when your TV commercials ran, your paid search went up 8%, right? It can't plan it, but it can give you the numbers afterwards. And so your pure day-to-day job is going to be fairly robot-proof. However, parts of that job will be automated, which we'll get into a lot more of the statistics. And we say, well, why are these jobs so secure? It's because people are irrational, right? Computers are not. So this was a study that was done, and it was a brand-based study initially out of MIT labs. And so they used a group of monkeys, and they had 3 food dispensers. Now, every food dispenser gave you the exact same amount of food. So on the 3 dispensers, they put a picture of a brand logo, and then on one of them, a dominant monkey, on another one, a subordinate, and the third one is a prina, or actually known as a sexy monkey. And so they had these food dispensers. The sexy monkey or the prina was by far the most used food dispensary. Even if the other 2 had no lines to them, monkeys would wait to get food from that one. The dominant was the second one, and then the subordinate. Now a computer says, well, that's the shortest line. Why would I wait to get the exact same amount of food? Right? A computer would make the logical course. The monkeys didn't. Then they removed the picture of the monkey and left the brand next to it. And they could move these orders around, right? It wasn't always the exact same spot. The brand next to the sexy monkey got the most usage even after the picture was removed, right? Brand association. And so this is why marketing is so important. As humans associate emotions and empathy to a brand. A computer says, these 3 buttons give me the same thing. This one gives it to me quicker. I should use that one. Right? Completely different decision-making processes. So we think about market research. Well, market research, 61% of jobs are probably going to go away. Now that's a huge number, right? So when we think about this though, they're going away from a market research standpoint. What will be left is a lot of the testing and strategic analysis of that research. So to give you an example, if we put up there, this is actual data, or you put up 2 ads, one was 10% off, one was free shipping. The average savings, 10% off, was $19.50. The average savings from free shipping was $5.23. And this was mostly aimed at people who are 40 plus. People don't do math. They say, oh, free. Free is good. Let me click on free and buy from free. Now, if they chose 10% off, they'd save $14 more, right? They're making the bad choice from a financial standpoint, but it was by far more used. Now, funny enough, when we look at the group, that's the younger group, that's usually 18 to about 34, they prefer 10% off, even if 10% off is more expensive. If you're buying a couch, you probably want free shipping on a couch, not 10% off. That's a pretty hefty shipping fee, right? And so even as we look at, there's actually a split right now by age ranges, free shipping versus 10% off. Both groups have a preference. Neither one does the math. And so this is, again, why humans are so illogical. These are the kind of market research questions that you need to come up with to say, what actually does best for us, not what the consumer should choose, because they're going to choose irrationally. But when we look at market research, it's become so much easier because the tools that exist these days. SEMRush, SpyFu, iSpionage, What Runs Where, SimilarWeb, Moat, right? So access to competitive data is very easy, right? Once upon a time, you wanted to do competitive research. That meant getting a bunch of IP addresses to anonymize the IPs across different locations, a human doing a search, or a bot doing a search, screenshotting what was there, comparing that screenshot to a previous screenshot to see if it was actually different. If it is different, timestamping when it's different, putting it down in a chart so that the human can then start to look at, okay, that's really not different. You just changed a word that didn't really mean anything. There's the difference ones. So now we can plot out how often they change ads, how often their messages go. No one wanted that job, right? It was necessary, but not when SEMRush and iSpionage and Moat can automate that part. Right now, the human comes in and says, okay, give my report. Okay, this advertiser is changing their ads every 14 days. In fact, it's so like clockwork, we can plan out when we need to look at this next. Here's what they're running right now. Here's our offer. There's the difference. That's what we need to think about, right? And so didn't get rid of some of these jobs. It transformed them to being interpreters of the data, and then they could be more on the strategic side. Another important word we're going to come back to a few times. And so it's not that the tools are good. I mean, the tools are great. Did they take some jobs? Yes. Did they make the end result better, though? Definitely, right? If someone was sick one day, you get your screenshots, you missed your data. Now it's there, right? So they're automating the low quality, horrible jobs to make humans use their brain power more. Now, analytics shows a clear picture. There's 3 analytics types involved in paid search. 1, reporting, right? So a statistical assistant is someone who compiles and computes data according to sort of predisposed models. That's reporting. You know what? This is a part of paid search that not enough people have automated. You do the same thing the first week of every month. You shouldn't be doing it. Google Data Studio, NinjaCat, Acquisio, they can all automate reporting, right? So again, a lot of that shouldn't be happening anyway. Now, do you need some people around who can go and you ask them specific questions? Hey, we want to know what our trend on mobile conversion rates is once we launch the new page speed updates to make the site faster. Did it affect us? Okay, that's useful, right? Because you're asking a question. You need someone to go in and grab that data. Great. Now, our next step in statistics, though, right? Develop or apply mathematical or statistical theory and methods to collect, organize, interpret, and summarize data. All right, so this job is not just the collection, right? It's the interpretation. So we often hear data storytelling. It's a good word, right? Before we would give clients, here's your 50 pages of PDF and Excel files. And they would look at it and they'd want to call the first couple of months they dealt with you. Then they stopped because it was just the same sort of data dump that had no meaning to it. They really want is, what does this mean to me? I know something's happening. All right, I can see all this data and these calls and these conversions and this cost per click and this quality score and this CTR, but what does that mean? Right, so that is going to be a job that increases, right? Data storytelling, and not giving someone all the data, but telling them what they need to know, how things are changing based upon all that sort of data dump analysis done, of which robots can do some of it, right, to make it useful information. Now, the safest jobs, people who actually write the formulas, create the algorithms, double check the algorithms, just as important, right? So your conversion scientists, right? Those who are really getting deep into the psychology of how users behave, plus the data itself, creating models, that's a very safe job because it involves not just math in some cases, right? Conversion science, right, involves human psychology applied with math. And so when we sort of look at these jobs against each other, right, statisticians are stat assistants going away. Their job role, follow pre-established data routines, reporting, bidding, right? That should be automated, right? They're following pre-established routines. Why should a human do the same thing over and over again? Right, when we think of automation, we think, if I have to do it by hand once, fine. If I have to do it by hand twice, I need to think, is this going to be the exact same every time? If yes, you know what? No one should be doing it the third time. It should be automated, right? That job's going to go away. Statisticians understand data storytelling, develop, collect, and organize useful information. Some will be lost, a lot will be kept. All right, formula and apply models, creating and auditing the machine. That's a job that no one's talking about much, which is going to become more important. Right now, how do you audit the machine? You turn on Google CPA bidding and you hope it does well. You try to look at the data, see, okay, it's doing well on desktops, but not on mobile. So if we want to use it, we need to make a desktop campaign and a mobile campaign, bid manually on mobile and automate it on desktop, right? It's that thought process of when it's working, is it working everywhere? If it's not working everywhere, how do you split it off? Or is it worth splitting off, right, to make it work everywhere? So next we have writers, right? So Narrative Sciences, a company who automates articles, full computer automated. In 2015, they wrote more than 1 billion articles. So from writer standpoint, machines wrote 1 billion from one company. That sounds terrible. When you think about it, the articles they're writing is based on structured data, box scores, quarterly reports, right? And you go to Yahoo Finance and you're glancing through, Google, Yahoo's, whoever's quarterly reports, probably written by a machine because it's structured data that just needs some context around it, right? So yeah, those are going to go away. But what computers can't do is originate new ideas, right? So computers, they're good at modifying your ideas. They're good at statistical significance. They're good at finding variations. Hey, this adjective and this adjective mean the same thing. Right? They're great at that. New ideas live with humans. And so if you're a creative copywriter, your job is in really, really good shape, right? Because this is originate, prepare, written material, scripts, stories, ads. That's a human idea because that involves empathy. It involves with connecting with a human, one irrational being connecting with yet another irrational being, right? If it was irrational connecting to not completely rational like a computer, we may have a disconnect. Computers can probably write for computers, but they can't write for humans. Now, humans have to automate the machines. And this is why a lot of times we see machine learning. Our first step is to say, well, let's see if this is really any good or not, because machine learning doesn't always work. Google launched what they love the word smart, right? So they launched smart display campaigns. So we went, okay. It's something new. Let's try and see what happens. Now, this particular account, I'm going to show the stats in a second. They run about a 12% conversion rate on search. They run about an 8% conversion rate on display, not including remarketing, which is even higher. Our smart display campaign was 20,000 clicks and 0 conversions. Now, if you're a human, you would look like we had to try to be that bad. If you get 20,000 search clicks, you'll probably get a conversion, right? The intent is there. I think I've seen 12 or 13 different smart display campaigns. All but one look like this. 10,000 clicks, 20,000 clicks, 30,000 clicks, conversions, 0, 1, very low, right? So humans have to audit, because what the early adopters are doing is they're paying for the machines to get enough data to figure out how to eventually make good decisions. Now, the difference here is humans have what we call prior knowledge. So this is a 1980s video game. And so think of this as, Mario, whatnot. And so this out of MIT as well. And so they made this game, and they put on Mechanical Turk and said, all right, if you finish this game, we give you like a quarter or something. They then took the 23 best machine learning algorithms and gave them the game. Now, the trick to the first iteration was you only got a reward, which would be like a conversion, if you finished. You don't get a reward for making a correct move. You only get one if you finish a level. So what happened? All right, humans took them less than 1 minute to win the game, about 3,000 keystrokes. Only one machine learning algorithm even finished the game. That particular algorithm took 4 million keyboard actions, which is equivalent to playing it for 37 hours straight. Human 1 minute, best algorithm, 37 hours. So then, my thing is, you can look at this, right? You're a human, you have prior knowledge of video games. So you can look and say, okay, well, I have to jump down there. I probably have to jump over the fire. I can climb up the ladders. So you can glance at this and you have an idea, right, of how this works. So I said, well, let's remove some prior knowledge. Let's make it textures. So some of those textures happen to be ladders, others are fire, so forth. Now, the second game here took humans who bothered to finish at 20 minutes. Many gave up. They had to increase the Mechanical Turk payout rate to a couple dollars to get people to finish. Okay, so we annoyed humans, but humans are still finishing in 20 minutes. Computers, best one, still took 37 hours. All right, so we have a problem, right? Even with this, humans are getting better. Now, the game was then modified to give more rewards for completing an action. So you complete a level, right? Not the game, a level. Computers had more rewards. Most of the algorithms, not all of them, could finish it. You get a successful, you get a notation, a successful reward for doing a correct action. Boom, now computers faster than humans. It's a huge difference. With very low data points, machine learning can't figure out how to play something humans do in less than 1 minute, right? So when they go, well, okay, what does this mean to marketing? If I showed you these ads, and I said it's April, the screenshot was taken like 3 weeks ago. So it's April. Do you think these ads should be running? Every one of you should say, well, no, those are terrible. In fact, some said 2013 on them, which I couldn't believe there were 2013 ads still running. Now, a computer says, well, these ads were created right November 21st. And from November 21st until December 20th, they did really well. There were a lot of searches. There were a lot of clicks. Like, we had great data. So the machine decides, right, this is the best ad in your ad group. Now, sometimes machines don't test their own assumptions. They made a rule. Can they go back and look at it? Secondly, even if they can, right, they need to say, we need enough data to change our mind. The problem is search volume for Black Friday deals, of course, has dropped significantly because it's 2018. And so it can't get enough data to figure out it needs to stop these. So when we think about dramatic changes, doing something on a hunch, humans way, way better than a computer. So a computer doesn't have a hunch, right? That's a human. Human goes, bad ads, let me change this. Right? Computer goes, okay, these have dropped. Let me make 2017, 2018. That didn't work. Let me see, what if we do White Friday deals? That might actually work because it'll be different for a little bit. And then it'll drop again because the pages are broken or something else. And a computer doesn't know to completely change the message. Right? So when we think about something as simple as ads, computer can make variations of current. Right? Google even has this ability now with their ad suggestions, where they can determine a test is taking place. You got 2 ads in an ad group, or you're using this pattern across 2,000 ads and this other pattern across 2,200 ads. I can detect there's a pattern. I can automatically create an ad test based on that pattern that's being used across the account. Computer can do that. Computers can run statistical significance, right? They can say, hey, we know you're running an ad test in 2,000 ad groups and that you have 1,000 winners. Human is not necessary for that step. In fact, they could even pause it on your behalf, right? No human necessary. Computer completely automate that. What a computer can't do is say, this is what you should test next. That's the human part. That's the originating new ideas, creativity. So when we stack up computers versus humans, creativity, humans. Strategy, humans. Storytelling, humans, right? Humans are good at connecting and telling stories to other humans. Quick market changes, humans, right? Computers need enough data to know the market is changing. I remember sitting home one night and I saw a TV commercial come on. It was the first time accident forgiveness was mentioned on a TV commercial. And I went, wow. And I reached for, I can think of a computer then, because I don't think I had a cell phone at that point in time. I don't remember. And to send one of our insurance clients this off. Before I got into it, the client had actually already emailed to me that we need to think about this and how to respond. Right? So the commercial had just aired. There was no data yet. The humans already realized that was a game-changing moment in the insurance industry, and we needed to figure out a story right then on the spot, right? A computer has to say, okay, your metrics are going down now, something happened, right? Auditing the machine, humans, empathy. Empathy. Computers will never have empathy. But the human's worst problem, right? The weakness of a human is time and speed to calculation. Right now, when we think about a computer, okay, they're better at math than humans are. Humans make fat finger things, make mistakes, move a decimal point. Computers are way better at math, which means they're better at bidding. It means they're better at statistical significance. It means they're better at inputting repeatable data, such as reporting. Now, where it's questionable, right? Conversations from human-driven inputs. Chatbots is sort of like this interesting hybrid world where the humans are giving it conversations. It could be help files or something. The computers are having the conversations with humans. So it's actually human to computer assisted conversations as opposed to normally it's computer to human assist. It's actually inverse in that case. But their worst problem is when the data changes, it doesn't know to change its assumptions. And so a good example of this is you probably have all had PPC accounts and you turned on the optimize feature, right? Show the best performing ads most often. And you start looking at your metrics, and 1 in 5 ad groups, your worst performer shows the most, right? And you look and say, well, if I can see this with my eyes, how can a computer not see it? Because early on in the lifespan, it decided what was best. And that might have not been enough information. It could be that it had moved on to something else to think about, right? And so it doesn't always correct itself. And optimize versus rotate is probably the setting in AdWords that you can clearly see this, right? More than any other setting in the system. But another question to ask yourself is, can you even automate it? Right? So when we think about automation, we say, is a process repeatable and consistent? All right. No. Can you make it repeatable? No. You can't automate it. So then you can automate alerts, right? So, okay, then you have to say are more than and a high percentage, right? Useful. If yes, great. You can automate alerts. You can automate the action. Always be careful automating alerts. I mean, Target, when they had their massive data breach, a year and a half ago or something, they had all kinds of alerts. There was a data breach, but it was like 1% of their 4 million daily alerts. They never noticed them, right? Sort of difference. So then you have to say, okay, process repeatable, consistent. We're happy with our suggestions. So then, are we happy with everything? All right. No. Well, then we may just automate some alerts. Have everything? Yes. Then we can automate it, right? So that's the thing with automation, is we have to be happy with all the outputs the machine puts in. And just some quotes to leave you with. Rob Norman was the CEO of Group M North America, which is the largest ad buyer probably in the world outside of maybe P&G. And he said that there's no need to fear. The work marketers do is becoming more important because it's more critical now in an AI-powered world when people talk about to their computer, hey, give me this, that they mention your brand, right? And so, empathy, right, and being human is essential. And so we went from working with information given to us, right? 30 years ago, we were information workers. The machines beat us at processing, right? So last decade, right, we've become intelligence workers. Now he's saying it's time to change again, right? In the new age of assistance, we need to be imagination workers, right? Creativity, strategy. Because at the heart of succeeding, right, as an imagination worker today, is cultivating a deep desire to help people navigate their daily lives and tasks. So his advice is to focus on bringing a new level of imagination, creativity, right, to how you serve. So stay focused on consumer, right? Ride the wave of the unknown, take some risks, always challenge the status quo. And he's like, you not only evolve in this world, you'll thrive in it if you're a creativity and strategy person. So when we kind of recap here, there's a couple of very important points. Computers will transform jobs, not take them. Now, prior knowledge, right? Really, really useful. You have to have it though. So we think of prior knowledge in paid search, right? That means you actually have to know how all these pieces fit together, because you can't audit a machine if you don't know how it's supposed to work without the machine, right? Very important point. And so as we give machines tasks to take, where we always have to check the machine, question is who's going to be there who actually knows what's happening to be able to check the machine. We see this in some industries right now where it was automated 50 years ago and people don't know how to completely check stuff. And so, humans can change directions dramatically quickly and on a hunch. Right? Computers need data. So that's interpreting competitive research. Right? Humans are logical. Humans have empathy. Computers are programmed. Right? Humans are going to be your writers. They're going to be those who influence, right? Advertising is influencing someone to take action. right? So computers, they are going to take your job if you just do reporting, you just do data entry, you just do some bidding, your job is gone, right? If you are thinking, here's what we're doing, here's the new ads we want to run, here's how we want to compare ourselves to this competitor, here's a new strategy we should employ when we sync up our email and our remarketing list, you're in great shape, right? Because humans are going to retain creativity, strategy, and the audit of the machine. If you want to keep joining us, we'll be here June 21st for how to use PPC tools, our productivity, and then in July, looking at how some big brands do their ad testing. And I will turn it back over to Dan to see what kind of questions and thoughts we have today.
Great. Well, thank you, Brad. And it's very reassuring that on digital marketing, we won't be completely replaced by the digital. The empathy is a big part of that. I have a couple of questions here, and one of it is one of these is what sorts of AI tools are available to automate, like rather than worrying about AI taking over, but how can we actually use AI ourselves? Are there any ways to automate our PPC work already, like with AdWords scripts, I'm guessing, or other
You've
tools
got
like that?
AdWords scripts, you have the API. A lot of this similar lists, CPA bidding, ROAS bidding, right? They're actually machine learning that is there for you you don't have to even know how to do it, right? It's already in place. You take advantage of it in market audiences. Google has machine learning code available for everyone to try to run stuff through. They've got a predictive analytics code that you can put in some inputs, and it'll say, here's what we predict will happen. And so Google's got a few resources now that you can leverage to see how it works. The thing that I think people miss at times is that you have to ask it a specific question, or you have to tell it what you're trying to accomplish. And so you can't just say, here's my query data, tell me what to do, right? You got to say, here's my query data, and here are what I want to know is how many queries I should get that in long term, right, this should be a negative keyword. And so a basic filter in many cases can do that. In fact, we took one of the algorithms and we fed in a large advertiser's query data to ask the machine, right, at how many clicks are we certain that the long-term viability of this keyword is going to spend more than it makes. And the machine came back for that particular account, right? Everyone's different. And it was 129 clicks. This account already had a filter in place that said at 150 clicks, no conversions, make a negative keyword. So human prior knowledge in some cases is actually as good. But that's so always be careful of that. But ask it some simple ones that you know how you would do it first and see the difference. But Google's got some good resources already.
Great. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing to keep in mind is to that actually learning how to talk to the machine and the syntax that will work best for you is a skill that's useful as well. The another question is, so see, Google announced that like 20% of searches in the Google mobile app in the US are done by voice. Does that mean that we're on the verge of like not needing keywords anymore? I don't know if this is really related specifically to the AI.
You know what? It follows on the same thing. So again, the search was done by voice, but the voice just translated the keyword that then brought out the results. So that voice in most cases, voice search is just keywords that are said as opposed to typed. Which means more natural language occurs, which means you see a lot more who, what, when, why, how, words, right, in question form. But the keywords are still the exact same. It's just the input type changed.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, until you're answered by a voice and there's a solo answer, right, or there's a screenless device, in most ways, voice search right now is the same as typing. Right, it's just the keywords being used are longer in length, but they're still just keywords.
Right. We have a question from Pedro. Actually, a couple of good questions. So, Do you think a PPC manager needs to master not only AdWords, but also Google Analytics and any other analytics tools in order to understand better the audience landscape? Or do they pretty much, is the role of an isolated PPC manager kind of going away?
That's a great question. So the way I think of this, right, is if you are a traffic driver, which means you're in paid search, you're in email, you're organic, social, your goal is to drive traffic. You need to know the basics of analytics and conversion, because your conversion optimization says, make my traffic convert better. Your analytics says, tell me the story. You may not master them both, but you often want to be a specialist in one and then have knowledge, maybe not super in depth, because a GA can be its own code base to get into, right? It's actually really tough when you get really deep into it, but have a base knowledge of the others, because that lets you set strategy across different systems, understand how PPC and organic and email play together into analytics. And so while you may not master them all, having a solid background education, even if it's the 101, 201 level in other disciplines, helps you become a much better paid search, in this case, analyst.
Great. So let's see. Pedro, does that answer your question for you? We're in the live chat right now. The another question while we're waiting is how can I get my online store ready for? Pedro says yes, thank you. How can I get our online store ready for AI, like Google Assistant voice-driven transactions? Is there anything that we can do on our side to make it easier to interact with AI, knowing that it's coming?
Yeah, start playing with chatbots, because in many ways, right, AI is just accomplishing a task for somebody. And so when we think about what tasks does someone want to do? Well, they want to be able to comparison shop. And you'll have a set of group of users who want to be able to check the items and see the detailed stats. You'll have the other group who just wants something quickly, and they probably want to use more chatbots. Chatbots is a form of AI. You can, Microsoft, although they got rid of their one, they've got a free chatbot system. They just killed the easy one to use to put it all in Azure, and it's a little more difficult, but that can get you started with sort of playing with, here's how our help files are structured. Here's how our content's structured, because the chatbot needs structured content to work from. And so it can then look and say, oh, here's what they asked is semantically the same as this help file question, therefore I can give them that. Or what they semantically asked is the same as the description in this particular product, and this other one over here, I should recommend either one or both depending on how you do your programming on your side. So chatbots are a really good sort of first iteration to play with in prepping consumers for AI within how they shop from you.
Great. Okay. Well, we have one more question, and maybe we can make sense of this. The question is, what about AI and click fraud? I'm not quite sure the specifics of the question, but I imagine it's like, what can we do to correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, about if this is what your question is. But I'm thinking, like, what can AI is out there, and how do we help protect our PPC from AI generated clickbait or click fraud?
Also, in many ways, that's Google's problem as well, because you only see the information post-click. And so you can see some of those patterns where Google then develops AI to counteract the AI that's trying to do click fraud. So you can use, machine learning over your own data set to qualify what you consider low value traffic, which may not be click fraud. But low value traffic, and then you can remove that from your own paid search account, which could be a geography, could be certain IP ranges, may or may not be click fraud. But that would essentially help you get rid of click fraud while increasing your account efficiency at the same time. But in many ways, that's Google's AI battle to fight, and not really the advertisers.
Right. Yeah. So Mary's saying that the specifics were, how can we tell if are there ways of detecting if AI is making click fraud for us? I mean, is there anything how can we as humans tell the difference between legitimate, if something looks suspicious, what's a good cue that we may be the victim of this?
So it's mobile phones made this much harder because so like on a computer, right? You can look and say if this particular session clicks on a button but does not have mouse movement, then it's probably a bot. Now it could be a screen reader from someone who's blind, right, or low visually impaired. So it's not always that way. But using mouse movements was a great way of looking at that. You can do browser fingerprinting. Most browsers are actually unique because there's a different, screen resolution and browser plugins and color palettes and language and so forth. So you can start fingerprinting browser types. Again, a lot of work. Mobile phones are much harder because there's not plugins and there's not necessarily mouse movement. There's a human scroll, which doesn't always get pushed back to the your analytics side. So it's easier on computers and phones by far to check for that. But things like mouse movement detection is a very simple one to implement, and will tell that someone was on a computer and actually clicked 3 buttons, but never actually moved their mouse. So if that's coming from a set of IPs, a country type, that's an indication you want more investigation, but does not always mean click fraud.
Great. Well, that's good advice too. So we're about to wrap up here. If there's any last minute questions, we have time to ask maybe one more. But in the meantime, if you have other questions, feel free to pop and ask them on the YouTube video. I sent everyone a link to our YouTube video. Check us out on Simplilearn. Just search Simplilearn on YouTube, and you'll see this webinar and a bunch of other recordings as well. And you can continue the conversation by asking us right there. You can also contact us on Twitter, like @Simplilearn, and we'll get back to you too. So I just want to say thank you again, Brad. This was a fun topic, and a lot of people were really engaged with this today.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan, for keeping us moving along.
Yeah, my pleasure. And just a reminder to our audience that, of course, you can rewatch and reshare this webinar instantly right now on YouTube. And for all those who registered through WebEx, please keep an eye out for a follow-up email in a week or so with a written wrap-up of this webinar that you can share with your friends and family, coworkers, and colleagues, and also the video and more. Remember to follow Brad Geddes on Twitter @BGTheory for more information on PPC best practices and more. And if you have any other further questions, like I said, that didn't get addressed, just feel free to tweet at us or leave a comment on YouTube. And for a full schedule of all upcoming webinars and events, please head over to our Facebook page. Just look for Simplilearn. So thanks again, Brad. And I look forward to fighting the robots with you in the near future.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.